Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. So excited to jump in. I figure I should start off this whole thing with explaining to everyone who I am, where I am, and what led to some of the decisions I've recently made. So just for starters, if you don't know me, I'm Shay, I'm 28, originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. I've lived in Florida for the past about 4 years, and recently I decided to make a huge jump and transition from working in mental health to getting into the tech industry. Y'all pray for me because I definitely didn't have any impression that getting into tech would be easy, but I'm seeing now how, yeah, there's more to it than really just learning a skill quickly and applying for some jobs real fast. So it's going to take a lot of grind, a lot of grit, a lot of grace, a lot of prayer, and I know God will see me through, and I'm excited for where my career takes me. Hey, so I'm back. So what I did for this video, because I don't want to make my videos super duper long, because I'm like, hey, I want people to hear what I have to say, and I know that if people get bored and click off, they're gonna miss it. So what I did was make a list of some of the reasons that I was just kind of done working in mental health. I want to say that throughout my experience working in mental health, I've enjoyed so much. The people I've met, there's really nothing like the people you meet working in that type of field, because everyone at some point decided to be there because they wanted to be there. Even the places I have worked at, I believe that every facility, every hospital, every program, they've done the best they can with what they've been given to do. So I don't have any malice towards any place I've worked. And thirdly, I also am going to wrap up this video by sharing some of the good experiences I had. So it definitely was not all bad. Okay, I'm back. So the first thing I want to share, I'm going off my computer. And no, my computer is not cracked. I get that a lot, but this is just the case or whatever. It's Marvel, people, come on. What happened to contemporary design? Whatever. People are lame. Anyway, so I started coming up with some points that I wanted to share about why I'm choosing to just leave mental health, the industry, and then also just some of the things I saw that just started contributing to how I felt. They're not the reasons I'm leaving. I think we all know that any industry you enter, there's going to be pros and cons. There's going to be people that inspire you and people that also make you question your existence of being there. So these are just factors, again, that have contributed, and they're things that I have seen, and they're things that I'm just a deep thinker. So when I see things that are problematic for so long, and I feel like it's to no avail, it's to no solution, then that does warrant me kind of like reevaluating, like, what part should I play to make the most difference. And then there's also a humbling part of realizing if there's no difference I can make in that type of situation. So these are just some of the things that contributed. As I started going, I came up with a long list. I'm gonna try to just share what's relevant, and then maybe you guys leave some comments, feedback, and I could do a part 2. So first and foremost, this is huge, okay? Treatment and care is too reliant on pay. I am not throwing anyone under the bus, but I'm just speaking truth and facts that a lot of times how long people get to stay in certain facilities, even because of the length of stay, what kind of medicine they can be prescribed, because stop right there. When you're dealing with psychiatric medication, a lot of those things have to be in your system. A lot of psychiatric meds have to be in your system for a certain amount of time before anyone can really give a sound evaluation of if they're effective, how is your body responding. It's already putting your body into like this overdrive to get the medication kind of into your system. So it's like you don't know really, as someone's being introduced to a new med, how they'll respond. And sometimes if the proper med for that person is going to involve them being there longer than really what their insurance is covering for them to be there, they may get put on that med, or they may not, and then there's a whole other factor of if they're put on the medication and then they're discharged, are they safe? This didn't happen with the place I worked at, but I did have a personal friend who lost a very, very close friend because she was dealing with mental health problems. She had dealt with psychosis in different stages, and she was given a medication that ultimately led to her killing herself because she was just not safe. She was not stable. She was discharged. She was on this medicine, and through some fortunate choices, it ended up not turning out well for her. Thank God I didn't witness any of those things firsthand at any place I worked. That was never a story I heard personally, but I can say that so much of what insurance covers, and this is not just a mental health thing, just in America, I just think we all need to stop and realize the cost in insurance and what insurance covers predicates what doctors are able to do. And it's not the doctor's fault, it's not even the facility's fault, but I just get very frustrated with the idea of how much insurance determines the type of care people get. And especially we're talking about mental health care. There's people that'll need ongoing mental health care. And I really question, will they be able to get that the way the mental health system is set up on insurance and pay and co-pays? We don't know. Second point, not everyone who needs mental health care needs to be hospitalized. I think so often, and again, I'm not a doctor, these are my opinions as a recreation therapist, just observations of me working firsthand with patients all day, every day. So many people end up being hospitalized that I don't believe need to be there. There it is, I said it. I think some people, all of them, I think if you said something or did something, or you even felt something that led to you being here, there is something very real going on with you that needs to be examined. But do I think that that means all of the same people in that case need to end up in a hospital for 5 to 7 days and in rare situations longer? No. Some people need a therapist. I mean, some people that come in because they were, struggling with stress. They were feeling overwhelmed. They started having a panic attack. Some of them have never even had therapy before. Maybe they did, but they saw a therapist 5 years ago. And now this is something new and a new stage of life that's completely different for them. I don't think someone having, y'all, this is trying me. It keeps stopping. I'm going to move on to the third point. I've also gotten really frustrated working in mental health, seeing, this has nothing to do with like mental health care in America, but I get so frustrated seeing people have no family structure. And this is beyond anything that we can do as mental health providers, but I just can't fathom, like literally in my mind, and it breaks my heart. This is coming from like a sadness, like a deep sadness, that's legit, how people end up super depressed, very just unwell mentally. And it's time to discharge them. It's time to help them think about their life outside of this facility. And it's so sad and it's heartbreaking how many people don't have any support outside of facilities, outside of the caseworker they see every time they get re-Baker acted or they get put on another 72-hour hold. And they form relationships with the staff. That's really cool. But they don't really have any type of human interaction that benefits their well-being outside of the facility. And it just breaks my heart because when people don't have a proper social support, even if you don't have a mental illness that you're battling, if you don't have proper social support, you're very likely not going to have any type of accountability, meaning when something bad happens to you or when you made a bad decision and you're trying to find your footing again, you're trying to get back, above ground. There's no one to really help correct you, to make sure that doesn't happen again. There's no one to really follow up with you, check in. Hey, are you okay? Hey, are you still taking your medicine? Hey, I can give you a ride to your appointment. People are reliant really on other services that may or may provide the service depending on how short-staffed they are, because right now in America 2021 everything's short-staffed. So it's just really tragic to see that people don't have a lot of support and family and friends that care about them and that support their well-being outside of the hospital, or just care to make sure they're okay outside of when they're in a crisis. It's just very stressful for me to see because I've strived to not live my life like that. I'm very much I can be a loner, but I know how much community means to the well-being of someone's life, and to see people without that and have mental health issues, it's just truly heartbreaking. And there's not much as a mental health provider that any of us can do but that, because we're forming relationships and we're helping people and we're setting them up the best we can while they're in the facility. And once they get out, ultimately that person is accountable. Next, I've worked with more nonprofits that are more trauma-informed than mental health facilities. And it blows my mind. I've literally worked with a large nonprofit before, and then there's also been a smaller, more grassroots nonprofit I was really involved in, and they were striving to be more trauma-informed. And that was a part of how we were trained. That's a part of, at that large nonprofit, how we were oriented when we were onboarded to even work at that place. But yet I go into mental health facilities. I honestly feel like if you ask some of the people that work there, very hands-on on the floor what trauma is, they may or may not even know what it means. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to be condescending. I'm just like, I'm being serious. Like, I think that there's not enough. I'm okay with people coming into jobs and not knowing everything about the job to be successful. Because let's be real, people a lot of times take jobs because they do want to learn, they do want to grow in their career. Therefore, they need to learn skills while they're on the job from the facility that'll equip them to do what is needing to be done and meet the level of expectation at that particular workplace. So it's not all on the staff. There needs to be an accountability of training that comes from the company. But when the staff are kind of not able to provide expertise in a certain area, and then in lieu of that, the company's not able to train them appropriately or help them kind of level up in their skills, it's an equation for a disaster a lot of times. I mean, some of the things that you think you would never hear someone say ever, that you hear said in a mental health facility where we're supposed to help people, it'll blow your mind. And even as I thought about that, my mind was like, I wonder if I could write like a Dear Mental Health Facility note type thing, just, talking about the pros, the cons. And I go to Google and I type in Dear Mental Health, and I've actually was reading just today people that have been in mental health facilities that had the similar thought, writing or making a document through a video. Dear Mental Health, I know you guys mean well, but I've been hurt at mental health facilities, emotionally, verbally. Things have been said to me that didn't help me. And I think that all comes down to when you don't have people properly staffed. And honestly, that'll take us into our next point. I don't even remember right now what point we're on. My next point would definitely be the workers are overworked and they're short-staffed. When people are overworked and they're short-staffed, it's a recipe for disaster. I truly do not think that anyone is going to be able to be super empathetic. I think to have a job working on the floor with mental health patients, you have to be empathetic, like through and through. Empathy needs to be your thing. But how can you truly be empathetic and give everyone what they need if you're being pulled in 8 different directions because you're short-staffed, or you're having to look after this whole hospital unit of 20 people by yourself? It doesn't make sense. How can anyone be empathetic? You're going to be stressed. So I think that it's not always, the level of skill isn't really fitting of the staff and the companies don't train well. I think that when people are overworked, they're stressed. And no matter how professional you are, how much you know, we've all been there. When you're stressed, all of that can sometimes go out the window really quick depending on the situation. And when you're working in mental health, there's so many situations like that. Like I've been called the N-word twice. I've, watched people get, emergency injections against their will, and that's legal. I'm not saying like, oh, they shouldn't have, or the hospital was wrong, but it's just sad. It's really sad, as a human, to watch another human be held against their will to get something that they have an emergency order to get, but it makes them feel uncomfortable, or it kind of re-traumatizes them, having people now pinning them down for a shot. It's a lot to fathom and see, and it's stressful for everyone. So I'll take that to the next point. Where are we? Turnover. Yes, turnover. So with all that stress of being on the floor, every day is different in mental health. I like that because it goes with my flow of personality. I like to have fun. I like the spontaneity. I like to kind of stay on my A game by being prepared for anything at any moment. But ultimately, when you're constantly having to maintain safety, step in for people that decided not to come to work, taking care of people in emergency situations, and then you have new patients coming and other patients leaving that you're responsible to help gather their things. It's not sustainable. No one can do that well for a long period of time. And if they do, it's probably because they've checked out and they don't emotionally care about any of it, or they're just a really awesome human being. And there are those people that exist in mental health, but it's rare. So for staff and workers to not end up so overworked and just feeling so stressed and so pulled in so many directions, to the point of maybe they came in bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, they wanted to learn more, they wanted to grow, and now they're just like, I don't want to learn anything else. I feel like I'm not even competent or doing my job day in and day out well enough. I think that companies in mental health need to invest in their employees by preparing them for that burnout, meaning give them, I don't know, like extra time off. I know this sounds so ridiculous, but I mean, there has to be some type of give, because working in mental health is not like working in any other field. It's a whole different smorgasbord of issues and problems and things that you face on a daily basis. And even if you're prepared for that, it still takes a toll on you because we're human. And I think that companies, I wrote it down here, need to deliberately invest in strategies to prevent overworking staff and to prevent their burnout. And honestly, the companies won't really be able to do that because they don't have the money to do that. When you're working for especially specifically a private mental health hospital, I don't really know. I've worked at companies where the funds, or I'll say I've been involved in nonprofits where the funds are spent and it's very public, how different funds are allocated, how new projects are financed, donations, all of it, because of course it's a nonprofit, like it has to be public. But when you're dealing with a private institution, I don't know, how all the dollars break down as far as who gets paid what is that predicated on? Obviously skills and experience, but at the end of the day, it's a tight budget and there's not going to be extra money for, let's just give everyone a free day off every year. The companies, again, they're doing the best they can with what they have, but I just think sometimes it takes a toll on the staff that are responsible for the patients ultimately. Next. This was actually really, really big for me. Your ability to be successful in mental health is going to be based on your own self-awareness and willingness to dig into your own mess. What I mean by that is, if you are someone that was highly traumatized as a child and you're constantly dealing with patients that are coming in from traumatizing life events, or they're living with their abusive family, and because the abuse got so bad on a particular weekend, now they made a suicide attempt, now they're being hospitalized. Because you're human, you cannot make me believe that that would not affect you in some way, even if it's just a thought, just the fact that you're like, oh, wow, like unless you've suppressed it just like really, really, really good, it's going to occur to you something's going to come up in you. And I think that when you're dealing with any type of patient that's going through something, and if you've not addressed your own stuff, what they're going through is going to rub off on you, and it's going to pull on your heartstrings to the point where it starts agitating something in you. And when that agitation of whatever this person's situation is affecting who you are starts coming to the surface, you're either gonna get really just hostile to patients and just become not a good employee, or you're gonna have to do the mature adult thing, which is self-examine yourself, be self-aware, say, oh my God, this is why I think it's good anywhere you work, side note, to just have people that you can trust and like talk to. Of course we're here to do a job, but it's so much easier when you're working with people that you can like to some level do 8 hours of life with every day. You have some type of rapport. So it's good to just have that sounding board. It doesn't have to be staff you work with, it could be a boyfriend, a husband, a friend, a sister, someone you do ministry with, just someone outside of the situation at hand where you can say, wow, something today at work just really didn't sit well with me. It got me really agitated. I don't know what it is, and sometimes that agitation isn't like, oh my God, like what they're going through is so heartbreaking and it reminds me of what I went through and now I'm crying. Sometimes you're just mad. You're like, and sometimes you're mad because you're like, wow, this person's crying over XYZ that happened to them. That happened to me all the time when I was a kid. You know what I was told to do? Get over it. And sometimes it's that attitude that I think staff carry. And I still say that all goes back to not addressing your own stuff. So that's point whatever. Maybe I'll add in points when I learn how to edit the video. We'll get there. And then I'll just do one more. Like I said, I started going on a whole list for no reason. Well, it wasn't for no reason, but I just don't want to harp on making it seem like everything's really bad. It wasn't. Let me see. I will say this. This is huge. There's not much growth in mental health unless you are okay with growing into an admission role. Admin is great. Leadership is great. I do think it is very appropriate for someone to strive towards a more corporate role, a more leadership role. However, remember, this is mental health. A lot of people enter mental health because they want to help patients. And yes, when you're in an admin role, you are indirectly helping patients because you're supporting the functioning of the hospital. And if there's no functioning of the hospital, there's no patients that can come there. But it distances you from maybe your heart for being there in the first place. And I think because of that, people often leave working mental health. Even the people that enjoy it and they're very just gifted at what they do, they love their job, but they start saying, wow, like if I want to, I don't know, have a house one day or just grow in my life or do other things, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to make really in the role I'm in. And even if I want to go into the admin role of maybe what the facility has to offer, is there possibility for that? There's not a lot of tracks and training to grow into that. Again, these are the places I've worked at. I've not seen it. I think maybe if you find a mentor there that you trust and you like, they may give you some advice and share some wisdom with you that could help you grow as a profession at that company. But those, I don't see mentorship like that. Like, I don't. And my mom, who worked in corporate America for 40 years, and even other professionals I know, I have a wonderful woman in my life that just graduated. Oh my God, she would laugh that I said that. She just retired from the government. And she talked about, being a young Black woman that came into working in the government at a very young age and she stayed with it for 40 years. She's just retiring this summer. She talked about how fundamental having a mentor was. And it kind of saddens me because as my mom's talked about mentorship, as this other trusted individual in my life has really shed so much light on the value of mentorship, it's saddening that in mental health care facilities, I don't see it. Maybe it's because they know the retention rate is so low, not high. But there's just such a high turnover. People are in and out. I'm going to find it really quick, and I would love to maybe add it into the video or the comment section for you guys to check out. But one article I was reading said that it says, rates of behavioral health workforce turnover are chronically high, with detrimental effects on the agency and remaining staff, as well as hypothesized negative impacts on client care and outcomes. Turnover also creates challenges for studies investigating the effectiveness and or implementation of behavioral health interventions. And I want to say in the same article, it went on to even add some number quantities on what does that turnover rate in America look like right now. I mean, this is an article from just last year. The retention rate is low, and with it constantly changing, I actually don't fault the companies for not investing in mentorship programs. At the end of the day, patient safety is what matters. We're here for the patients. So mentoring would take extra time. And then it's like, why invest more in people that really don't have a high rate of staying anyway? So that kind of stinks. However, this will take me into some of the good things that I did love working in mental health and just some of the things that are positive that will stay with me and have really inspired me to take the next step in my career going into tech as a whole new industry. So first, I absolutely loved my director. I have worked under a director before who told me pretty much, I have no idea what you do because I'm, again, a recreation therapist. By the way, just gonna add this in. Rec therapy is a allied health profession where we work as an interdisciplinary treatment team to give the patients positive coping skills, or we provide activities and services that help to rehabilitate the person from whatever their disability is. I highlighted the positive coping skills because that's a lot of the emphasis. It's not the totality, but a lot of mental health treatment is focused on how do people cope better with life, with stress, with the day-to-day things, and how do they complete their day-to-day activities of living. So recreation therapy uses a lot of activities. I used to do a lot of discussion-based groups, a lot of active intervention, sports, games, things like that, all with a very experiential learning edge where people are learning things, not just like, oh, I went outside, I felt good, but we're learning, well, what was good about that? How did that make you feel? How can you bring this into your day-to-day? And then we're also with the treatment team, getting patients to see the value of recreation and helping their well-being and their mental health increase. Obviously, someone that spends regular time outside or exercising is probably going to feel generally happier than someone who stays in a dark room most hours of the day and only plays video games. So it's kind of things like that. Back to what I was saying. I've worked with a clinical director before that's told me I don't know what rec therapy is, whatever, kind of do what you want. And at first I was like, oh, wow. I was like younger. I was like, oh, this is cool. I can kind of just do what I want. Obviously still do my job, but it's like I didn't feel any micromanagement. But then that also backfired on me very quickly, because I found if this person is telling me as my clinical director, he has no idea what I'm here to do, then when I need something and when I'm struggling with maybe the setting or just the structure of this facility, I don't know if he'll be a resource to me. And in the end, he kind of wasn't. However, the place that I worked most recently, my clinical director was awesome. She believed in me. She really rallied around like just giving me even positive ideas when I started out that would help me to reimagine, what all the facility could do, because before I arrived at that particular facility, they hadn't really had a lot of like ingenuity and a lot of like development of more effective activities in the department. So she just showed me that she was invested, that she cared, that she had experience, working with rec therapists, and she saw the value in the service, and she was willing to learn with me and support me and learning more. So much so that she wanted to see me learn, how to even manage the rec therapy department, because she believed in the skills I already possessed coming there and the experience I had to show as I developed curriculums. I had done activities and I had tons of like a portfolio to show them of this is what I've done. So the leadership was great because she ended up becoming a mentor to me. And being in an industry where I had not seen a lot of mentorship, I really learned to cherish someone that genuinely cared about my success as a young woman, especially a young woman of color, and just someone that has a lot of goals, has a lot of things I want to achieve one day. And she never pushed me down or made me feel like I didn't do enough or I couldn't grow or there's no future for me outside of, being there. So I totally loved her. That was just so awesome. Secondly, I would say that working in mental health, again, as a recreation therapist, I love how like creative. There's a lot of freedom, there's a lot of creativity in how you can help the patients. At the end of the day, no matter what your role is at that hospital with these patients, you have the ability, as long as safety is like first. You cannot be like, oh, I think it'd be cool for everyone to like just go outside. Some people will not be safe outside. Like that's the reality of it. But other than that, as long as safety is adhered to, it's really fun to feel like, wow, I have a creative space where I can come up with new programs. I can be innovative in my approach. I can tweak my delivery style and see how this can really help people all the more. So I love that flexibility so much. And it really just made me see the value in having roles that you can grow into, meaning there's always new and better ways. Even in that same role, you can do it, challenging yourself to be better. And then I'll say after that, it's so beautiful working with patients. And really the heart of it is just human interaction. It's so wonderful to work with other humans, helping people, knowing that people are receiving what you're saying. And a lot of times in our world, we lose so much hope in just like people. We're like, oh my God, like, Lord, is there any good people left? And working in mental health with the staff, with a lot of the leadership at times, and even more so the patients, you get so much hope. You see people that are really struggling, going through the worst things you could ever imagine, but they're still here believing they can be better. Or even if they're coming back every other week, the fact is they're still alive. You know what I mean? They're still here and safe, and they're able to smile, and that's more than what they can say for their life outside of being at that facility. So there's just something so beautiful about the human interaction, the sense of community. Even though you'll probably never talk to any of the people, definitely don't talk to patients outside of work. You're not going to talk to most of them outside of your job, but it's just beautiful working with people and seeing people receptive to help and treatment, and being on the other side of those services. It gives you hope as a provider about just the state of, humanity. It really, really does. So I'm going to leave that there. I think that was most of my points. This was a lot longer than I thought, but I'm so glad that I got through all of the points that I had written out. I'm excited to see you all's feedback. I would love so much literally to hear from people that have worked in mental health. I was going to say maybe you guys can kind of challenge me. We can have like a healthy like dialogue, you know, if you have any points where you disagree. But I have a strong feeling that most people that have really worked in mental health, a lot of these things will ring true. So I would just love to kind of share experiences and learn about, you know, you all's career goals. You know, what do you see next for you in mental health or maybe outside? And hopefully the next video I can get more into why tech was the next move for me. Bye.